cruel, shame, no mercy. That was what they left her with. Clara Vale hung under a dead branch on Black Ash Ridge, arms stretched high, wrist burning where the rope cut deep into her skin. Her dress was torn, dirt-stained, barely holding together, and the way she had been left there made one thing plain. This was not meant to kill her fast. It was meant to shame her. This was about leaving her like this, for someone to see, for someone to judge, for the town to think the worst before she could say a word. The sun beat down hard, bright and unforgiving, while the mountain wind slid cold through the fabric, clinging to her skin. Every small movement pulled her shoulders tighter, sharper, like something inside them might give out if she struggled too much. She had already fought the rope and lost. Now all she could do was hang there and pray the next person up that ridge would pass her by, because if someone did, they wouldn't see a victim. They would see a story. Her fingers twitched weakly around the rope above, but there was no strength left to climb, no footing beneath her boots. Just air, just pain. Then she heard it, a step, dry grass shifting under weight, slow, heavy, not hiding. Her breath stopped. No, another step came, closer now, steady and unhurried, like whoever it was had no reason to rush. Clara forced her head to turn, inch by inch, until her eyes found the edge of the trees, and then she saw him. He stepped out of the shade like he belonged to the ridge itself. Tall, broad, dark beard, a long coat worn from years of weather, a rifle hanging low in one hand, not raised, not rushed. Silas Boone. Even if she'd never met him, she knew the name before it formed in her mind. Cold mercy had built that name into something else over the years. A man who stayed away, a man who didn't answer to anyone, a man people talked about when the fire burned low and the doors were shut. Clara's chest tightened. This was the worst kind of ending. Not quick, not clean, but alone. On a ridge, with the one man everyone said you should never be alone with. Don't, she said, her voice breaking before the word finished. Please don't do that. He didn't answer. He stopped a few paces away and just looked at her. Not at her the way she feared to, but not away either. His eyes moved high, slow and steady, not rushing over her, not fixed in one place. At first the rope, then the knots, not drunk work, not wild work. Whoever tied her there wanted the scene to speak before she could. Then his eyes moved to the branch, then to the ground beneath her. Clara felt her pulse spike. Why was he looking like that? Why wasn't he saying anything? Why wasn't he moving? Was he deciding? Her breath came faster now, uneven, shallow. The rope above creaked softly as her weight shifted. Please, she said again, panic rising. Just leave. Please. The wind moved his coat slightly. Still nothing. Silas Boone stood there, quiet, steady, like a man who had seen something like this before. And that silence filled the space with something worse than words, because Clara didn't know what kind of man stayed this calm. She had heard stories about men who waited, men who watched, men who took their time. Her fingers tightened uselessly around the rope. Don't touch me, she said, louder now, fear cracking through every word. Please don't. That was when he moved. One step forward, then another, not fast, not slow, certain. Clara tried to pull back, but the rope held her exactly where whoever had left her wanted her. Exposed, powerless. Stay back, she said, barely louder than breath. He didn't argue. He didn't reassure. He just kept coming until he stood right beneath the branch. Close now. Close enough that she could see the lines in his face, the calm in his eyes. That calm made no sense. A man like the one she had been warned about should look hungry, or cruel, or eager. Silas Boone looked like none of those things, and that made her fear worse, because she couldn't read him. He raised his hand. Clara flinched hard, a sharp sound escaping her before she could stop it. Don't, she gasped. Don't do that. His hand stopped mid-air. For the first time, he spoke. Easy, he said, low and steady. Just one word. Not kind, not harsh, just certain. His eyes shifted again, not to her body, but back to the rope above her wrist, the knot, clean, tight. Done by someone who knew what they were doing. His jaw set slightly. Then he looked past her, at the ground. Tracks, fresh, more than one set. Whoever had done this hadn't been gone long. Silas took a slow breath. "If I cut you down," he said quietly, almost to himself, "they'll say I did it." Clara froze. The words didn't make sense at first, and then they did. If anyone from town rode up and saw this, her tied, hurt, him standing right here, there would be no question, no waiting, just rope. Her fear shifted, not gone, but different. Because for the first time she realized something else. He wasn't looking at her like a man deciding what to take. He was looking at the situation like a man deciding what it would cost. The wind picked up again, brushing through the trees, far off, faint but real. Something echoed through the valley. Metal, a bell. Clara's eyes widened. The town. Someone had noticed. Silas heard it too. He didn't turn. Didn't move away, but say. He just stood there, one hand still raised, caught between two choices. Walk away. Or step closer. And take the blame for something he didn't do. Before what comes next, one honest note. This story is drawn from old frontier accounts, retold carefully, with some details shaped to make the meaning clearer. The images are there to help you feel it, not to claim exact record. Now stay with me, because at that moment, under that branch, with the rope still cutting into her skin and the sound of riders beginning to carry across the ridge, one question mattered more than anything else. Would Silas Boone leave her there to save his own life, or would he step forward and take the noose meant for someone else? Silas didn't move. His hand stayed where it was, just below the rope, not touching her yet. The bell from the valley rang again, faint but steady, carried by the wind like a warning that was already too late. Clara heard it too. Her breathing changed. Not calmer, just different, because now it wasn't only about him, it was about who might come next. Silas kept his eyes on the rope, not on her, not on the torn dress, and not on anything that would make her pull away again. Just the rope, the knot, clean work, tight pull. No wasted slack. Whoever did this, he said quietly, knew what they were doing. Clara swallowed hard. Her throat was dry, her voice barely holding together. "They left me," she said. Silas gave a small nod. "I can see that." He stepped a little closer, just enough to take more of her weight with his arm. This time she didn't jerk away as hard. Still tense, still afraid, but something had shifted. He wasn't rushing, wasn't grabbing, wasn't even looking at her the way she expected. He adjusted his stance under the branch, steadying himself, testing the weight. Then he looked up at her again. "Listen," he said. His voice stayed low, even. "If I cut this wrong, you drop hard. That'll tear your shoulders worse." Clara blinked. That wasn't what she expected to hear. "Not even close," he went on. Same calm tone. "So I'm going to take your weight first, then I cut slow. You understand?" She hesitated. Fear still there, but now mixed with something else. Confusion. She gave the smallest nod. Silas shifted again, stronger this time, lifting just enough so the rope above her wrists loosened by a fraction. Clara gasped, not from pain, from relief. Even that tiny change took pressure off joints that had been screaming for too long. "Easy," he said again. Then, with his free hand, he reached for the rope. Clara tensed, but she didn't pull away this time. His fingers moved over the knot, not fumbling, not guessing. He knew rope. You could tell that much. He pressed the knot, testing it, feeling where it would give. Not drunk work, he muttered, not rushed. Clara heard that. "Then who?" she whispered. Silas didn't answer right away. His eyes flicked once more to the ground beyond her. Tracks still there? Fresh? More than one man? Boot heels? Not worn flat? Town boots? He didn't like that. Not one bit. The bell rang again. Closer now. Or maybe just louder in his head. Silas let out a slow breath. "No time," he said. Then he pulled his knife. The blade caught the sunlight for a brief second. Clara flinched again. Not as hard. But enough. I won't cut you, he said, steady as before. I'm cutting the rope. That mattered. More than he probably knew. He slid the blade carefully under the tension line, not slicing through all at once. He worked it slow, letting the fibers give bit by bit. The pressure eased, not all at once, but enough. Clara felt it. Her arms dropped a fraction lower. Her shoulders burned, but in a different way now. Less tearing, more release. Stay with me, he said. I've got you. He didn't say it like a promise. He said it like a fact. The rope gave more. Another inch, another. Then the final strand snapped. Clara dropped. Not far, not hard. Because Silas was already holding her weight. One arm braced under her, with the other steady on the branch, taking the strain before the fall could tear her worse. He caught her under the arms, steady, controlled, like he had done this before. For a split second, she was fully in his grip. And that was the moment everything could have gone wrong. Every story, every warning, every fear. All of it came down to that 1 second. Silas didn't tighten his hold. That didn't pull her closer, didn't linger. He steadied her. Then he stepped back. Just like that. Space, air, choice. Clara stumbled, her legs weak, her balance gone. He caught her again, quick, just enough to keep her from hitting the ground, then let go again. Always the same pattern. Help, then distance. She looked at him differently now. Not trust. Not yet, but something had cracked. Silas reached up and pulled his coat free. He didn't ask, didn't explain. He just draped it over her shoulders. Heavy, warm, covering what needed covering. Clara's hands came up slowly, holding it closed. For the first time since he stepped out of the trees, she didn't look like she was trying to disappear. She looked like she was trying to understand. Silas glanced once more at the rope still hanging from the branch, then at the ground, then back toward the ridge. Whoever did this, he said, more to himself now, wanted you found like that. Clara's stomach tightened. I didn't do anything, she said. I didn't ask who did. He replied. That landed differently. No blame, no doubt. Just fact. The bell rang again, longer this time. Sex exhaled slowly. They'll be riding, he said. Clara looked toward the valley, though she couldn't see it from here. They won't believe me, she said. Silas gave a small, tired look. They might, he said. Or they might not. He turned slightly, stepping toward his horse. Either way, he added. You don't want them finding you like this. The cabin was closer than town, and in her shape, she might not have made the longer ride. Clara hesitated, then took a step after him, unsteady, but moving. That said more than anything she could have spoken. Silas slowed his pace just enough so she could keep up. Not helping too much, not leaving her behind, somewhere in between. The wind moved through the trees again. The ridge felt quieter now, but not safer, not even close, because now the danger wasn't just one man standing in front of her. It was a whole town riding up behind him. And Silas Boone had just stepped into the middle of it. Before we go further, subscribe if you like stories told slow and straight. Tell me what time it is where you are and where you're listening from. Now let's get back to that ridge, because what happened next was where things stopped being simple. Silas led. Clara followed. Not side by side. Not close enough to touch. Just close enough that if she stumbled again, he could reach her before she hit the ground. That was the way he did things. Close when needed, gone when not. The path down from the ridge was narrow, packed dirt with loose stone that rolled under boots if you weren't careful. Clara wasn't careful. She couldn't be. Her legs shook with every step, her shoulders still burning from the strain, her hands clinging to the coat he had given her like it was the only thing holding her together. Silas slowed without saying it, not enough to make it obvious. Just enough. Every few steps, he glanced back, not at her body, at her footing, at the way she moved, at whether she could keep going. That mattered more. You'll want water, he said after a bit. His voice carried easy, like he wasn't trying to fill silence, just stating what was true. Clara nodded. Talking felt like too much work. He didn't push, didn't ask questions, didn't try to get her to explain anything yet. That, more than anything, kept her walking. No pressure, no judgment, just forward. They reached his horse, where it waited tied between two low pines. The animal shifted its weight, ears flicking. Sensing the tension, neither of them spoke out loud. Silas stepped ahead, checking the saddle strap out of habit. Then he turned. "You ride," he said. Clara hesitated, looking at the horse, then at him, then back again. That hesitation said everything. Trust didn't come back in 1 minute, not after what she had just been through. Silas didn't argue, didn't explain. He just stood there, waiting, letting the choice be hers. After a second, Claire moved, slow, careful. He stepped in, not grabbing, just guiding her elbow enough to help her balance. She climbed up, awkward, stiff, wincing as her shoulders protested. Once she was seated, he stepped back again. Same pattern, always the same. Help. Then space. Silas untied the reins and took them in his hand. He didn't mount, didn't even try. He walked, leading the horse instead. Claire noticed that. "You're not riding," she said quietly. "No need," he answered. Short, simple, true. He kept his pace steady, one hand on the reins, the other free. Always free. The trail curved down through thicker trees now, shadows cutting the heat, the air cooler under the canopy. For a few minutes, there was only the sound of hooves and boots on dirt. Then Clara spoke again. "They left me there," she said, not asking, not explaining, just saying it out loud like she needed to hear it herself. Silas nodded once. "I figured." She swallowed. "They said it was punishment." That made him glance back. "Not long, just enough." "For what?" he asked. Clara looked down at her hands, at the rope marks already darkening. "For shaming the church," she said. The words didn't sit right in the air. Silas knew it. You didn't tie a person like that for church talk. Not clean, not careful, not planned. He said nothing. Let her keep going if she wanted. She didn't. Silence came back, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one had shape, meaning. A few steps later, Silas stopped, just for a second. He crouched near the edge of the trail, eyes scanning the dirt. Clara watched him. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. His fingers brushed lightly over the ground. Boot marks, fresh, same pattern, same heel cut. More than one man. He stood again. "Nothing you need to worry about right now," he said. That wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Clara watched him a second longer, then looked ahead again. She was starting to understand something. Silas didn't say everything he knew, but he didn't say things that weren't true either. That kind of man was rare. A dangerous man could fake kindness for a minute. It was harder to fake restraint every step of the way. They kept moving. The trees thinned a little, and for a brief moment, the valley below opened up between branches. Clara saw it then, a faint line of dust in the distance, moving. Not wind, not cattle, riders. Her stomach dropped. "They're coming," she said. Silas didn't need to look. He had already heard it in the bell, already seen it in the tracks, and already counted the time. "Yeah," he said. Just that. No panic, no rush, just a quiet acknowledgement. Clara gripped the saddle horn tighter. "They'll think it was you," she said. Silas kept walking. "Most likely. You don't even care," she said, a little sharper now. That made him stop. He turned slightly, looking up at her. Not angry, not defensive, just tired in a way that came from knowing how things worked. "Caring doesn't change what they see," he said. That hit harder than anything else, because she knew he was right. From the valley, the faint echo of hooves started to carry upward. Still far, but not far enough. Clara looked down at him, at the man she had been told to fear her whole life, then at the road ahead, at the riders she had trusted without question. Something inside her shifted again. Not fully. Not clean. But enough. "If I tell them," she said slowly, "that you helped me," Silas looked ahead, "they'll hear you. he said. Then after a beat, question is, will they listen? The wind moved through the trees again. The sound of hooves grew just a little louder, closer now. Closer than before. Silas tightened his grip on the reins, just a fraction, not fear. Preparation, because he knew something Clara was only starting to understand. This wasn't about getting her off that tree anymore. This was about what happened when the wrong story reached the right ears. And up ahead, through the trees, the trail bent toward a place where there would be no turning back, because the first men coming up that ridge weren't riding to ask questions. They were riding to decide what kind of man Silas Boone was. The trail narrowed as it bent around a line of rocks, forcing the horse to slow. Silas didn't need to pull the reins. The animal felt it. So did he. So did Clara. The sound behind them had changed. Before, it was distant. Now it had shape. Hooves. More than one. Still far enough to breathe, but close enough to matter. Silas stepped off the path slightly, guiding the horse into a thinner strip of shade between trees. Not hiding, just not standing in the open. He stopped, listened, counted without looking. 2, maybe 3 riders. Not a full group yet. Scouts, testing the ground. Clara leaned forward slightly in the saddle. Her voice came quieter now. They're closer. Yeah, Silas said. No rush in it. No fear either. Just a man measuring distance and time. Clara looked at him again. Really looked this time. At his hands. Steady. At the way he stood. Balanced. At the way he listened before he moved. This wasn't a man guessing. This was a man who had been in bad situations before. That thought settled in her chest differently. You've done this before, she said. Silas gave a small shrug. Been in worse? Not pride, not boasting, just truth. The wind shifted, carrying a faint echo of voices from down the ridge. Not clear, but there. Men talking as they rode. Clara's grip tightened again. They're going to see me like this, she said. Silas glanced at her coat. Still wrapped tight. Good. Not if we get you inside first, he said. He stepped back onto the trail and started moving again, a little faster now. Not running, but no wasted steps. The cabin came into view between the trees a minute later. Small, plain, no smoke, no noise, just a structure that had been standing there longer than most people in town. Clara felt something in her chest ease, just a fraction. A roof meant time. Time meant choices. Silas reached the door, pushed it open, then stepped aside. Inside, he said. She didn't hesitate this time. That was new. Clara slid down from the saddle, wincing as her legs took her weight again, and moved past him into the cabin. Silas stayed outside 1 second longer, listening, counting again. Then he followed and closed the door halfway. Not shut, not open. Ready. Inside, the air felt cooler, still, simple. The table, stove, a cot against the wall, everything in its place, nothing extra. Silas moved without rushing. He poured water into a basin, set it near the table. Then he held up a cloth before stepping closer. Hands, he said. Clara looked at him, then slowly held them out. He cleaned the cuts quick, careful. No wasted motion. It stung. She flinched. He paused, waited, then kept going. Rope did most of that, he said. She nodded. Silence settled again. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one wasn't filled with fear. It was filled with questions. Clara watched him as he worked. You didn't have to help me, she said. Silas didn't look up. I know. That answer stayed in the air longer than anything else he had said. She studied him. You could have walked away. He rinsed his hands with a splash of water. Dried them on a cloth. Most would have. That was as close as he came to an opinion. Outside, the sound of hooves grew clearer. No mistaking it now. Closer, slowing. Clara's head turned toward the door. They're almost here, she said. Silas nodded once. Yeah. He walked to the doorway and looked out. Just enough to catch the edge of the trail through the trees. Dust. Movement. 3 riders. Just like he counted. He stepped back inside. 3 for now, he said. More will follow. Clara swallowed. If they see me here, he met her eyes for the first time since they entered. They'll think what they're already planning to think. In a place like Cold Mercy, a man could be guilty before supper and hanging by dark. No anger in it, no frustration. Just the way things worked. Clara felt that settle in her chest. Heavy, real. She looked down at her hands, wrapped now, still trembling, then back at him. "You're not going to run," she said. It wasn't a question. Silas leaned slightly against the wall near the door. Arms relaxed, not trapped, not ready to fight. Just there. "If I run," he said, "they won't hear a word you say." That landed. Clear, simple. And final, outside, a voice called faintly through the trees. Not angry, not yet, just testing. Boone. Clara's heart jumped. They knew his name. Of course they did. Silas didn't answer. Not yet. He let the voice hang. Let the men come a little closer. Time, always buying time. Clara took a slow breath, then another. Her fear was still there, but something else had taken its place beside it. Responsibility. Because now she understood something she hadn't before. Silas wasn't the one in the worst position anymore. He had stepped into it. For her. The voice came again, closer. Boone. Silas pushed off the wall and stepped toward the door. He paused just before crossing the threshold. Then he spoke, not turning back. When they asked, he said, "You say it plain." Claire nodded. Even though he couldn't see it, "I will." Silas stepped out onto the porch, hands visible, no rifle in them. The sound of hooves stopped just beyond the clearing. Dust settled slowly through the trees. Clara moved closer to the doorway, staying just behind the frame, watching. 3 riders came into view, faces she knew, men from town, men who had smiled at her before, men who had listened to her father speak. Now they were looking at Silas like they had already decided what he was. One of them noticed the rope marks on her wrist. Another glanced toward the trees, toward the direction she had been found. Their eyes hardened. The youngest of them reached down and slowly uncoiled a length of rope from his saddle. Not fast, not dramatic. Just ready. Clara felt her breath catch again. Because now it was happening. Not a story, not a fear. Real. Standing right in front of her. And the worst part was this. They hadn't even asked a question yet. And already they were preparing the answer. Now the only thing left to find out was this. Would they listen to her? Or would they hang him first and decide later? The clearing went quiet, not peaceful, tight, like something was about to snap, but no one had moved yet. Silas stood on the porch, one step away from the doorway, hands open where the riders could see them. No weapon, no sudden motion, just a man standing his ground. The 3 riders held where they were. Dust settled around their boots. One of them, the older one, squinted slightly, looking from Silas to the cabin, then back again. He wasn't rushing. He was thinking. The younger one wasn't. His hand rested on the coil of rope at his saddle, fingers already working it loose without even realizing. Claire saw that, and something inside her pushed past the fear. She stepped forward. Not all the way out, but enough that they could see her. The movement caught their attention. All 3 heads turned at once. "Clara," the older man said. Relief came first, then confusion, then suspicion, all in one breath. She held the coat tight around herself. Her voice didn't come out strong, but it came out clear. "I'm here," she said. That mattered. She was standing. Not tied. Not broken. That didn't fit the story they had come expecting. The younger rider frowned. His eyes moved quickly between her and Silas. "What happened?" he asked. Simple question. Simple. But the way he asked it already leaned one direction. Silas didn't answer. He didn't interrupt. He didn't step in. He stayed where he was and let the space belong to her. Clara felt that, and it steadied her more than anything else. "He cut me down," she said. Silence. The wind moved through the trees. No one spoke for a second. The older rider shifted in his saddle. "You sure about that?" he asked, not accusing, but not fully believing either. Clara nodded. Yes. The word came faster this time, stronger. The younger rider didn't like that. He glanced at the rope marks on her wrists, then at Silas again. Then who tied you? He said. There it was. The question that mattered. Clara's hands tightened on the coat. Her throat felt dry again, because saying the next part meant something worse than being afraid. It meant breaking something, and once broken, it wouldn't go back. Silas didn't look at her, didn't help, didn't push. He just stood there, waiting, letting it be her choice. That mattered more than anything he could have said. Clara took a breath. Then another. They said it was punishment, she said. The older rider frowned. For what? Clara's eyes dropped for a second, then lifted again. For speaking out, she said. She didn't say the rest. Not about the missing girls, the quiet wagons, or the kind of church talk that never sounded holy. That was enough for now. But it was enough to shift something. The riders exchanged a look. Uncertainty, small, but real. Silas saw it, and so did Clara. That was the crack. The first one. The older rider looked past Silas, toward the tree line behind the cabin. You find her like that? He asked. Silas answered this time. Yeah. One word. No extra detail. No defense. The younger rider snorted softly. Convenient. That word hung there. Sharp. Simple. Dangerous. Silas didn't react, didn't rise to it. That unsettled them more than if he had. Claire stepped forward another inch. He didn't do this. She said. The younger rider looked at her again, harder now. You expect us to believe that? He asked. Claire met his eyes. Not steady it, but not breaking either. Yes. The clearing tightened again, because now it wasn't just about what happened, it was about what they were willing to believe. The older rider exhaled slowly. He looked at Silas again. You always keep to yourself, he said. Hard for folks to know what to think. Silas gave the smallest nod. That's fair. That answer didn't help him, but it didn't hurt him either. It just sat there, honest. The younger rider shifted again, rope now fully uncoiled in his hand. Not thrown, not used, but ready. Clara saw that too. And this time, she didn't hesitate. There were others. She said. The older rider looked to Silas. Silas gave one small nod toward the ridge. Tracks, he said. More than one. Silas didn't look at her, but he heard it. And he knew exactly what she was doing. She wasn't just defending him. She was changing the direction of the story. The older rider frowned deeper now. You see them? He asked Silas. Silas nodded once. Yeah. That mattered, because now it wasn't just her word. It was his. And even if they didn't trust him, they knew he didn't talk much, which meant when he did, it counted. The younger rider hesitated, just a fraction. The rope in his hand lowered slightly, not dropped, but not ready in the same way anymore. That was the second crack. Small. But enough. From down the trail, more hooves echoed, more riders, closer now. The sound rolled through the trees, heavier, louder, harder to ignore. The older man glanced back over his shoulder. They're coming, he said. No one needed to answer that. Clara felt her pulse rise again, because she understood something now. These three men might still listen, might still think. But the ones behind them, they would not. Silas shifted his weight slightly on the porch, not stepping back, not stepping forward, just settling. Because he knew the same thing. The first group asks questions, the next group brings answers. And not all answers come with words. Clara looked from the riders to Silas, then back again. Her voice dropped. Just enough for him to hear. They won't wait, she said. Silas answered just as quiet. No. The sound of hooves grew louder, closer, faster now. Dust rising beyond the trees. The first three riders didn't move, but the way they held themselves changed. Less unsure, more braced. Clara felt it, the moment turning, because what happened next wouldn't be decided by what was true. It would be decided by who arrived first with a story strong enough to stick. and through the trees, just before the next group broke into the clearing. Clara saw a figure she knew better than anyone else. And that was when she realized that this wasn't just about proving Silas innocent anymore. This was about standing against the one man the whole town trusted without question. The second group came in faster, not cautious, not quiet. They rode straight into the clearing like they already knew what they were there for. Dust lifted around their horses, hanging low in the afternoon light. Clara didn't need a second look. She knew the man at the front before his horse even stopped. Reverend Amos Vale, her father. He sat tall in the saddle, coat clean, hat straight, posture calm in a way that made people listen before he even spoke. That was his way, always had been. The first three riders shifted slightly as he came forward, giving him space without being told. That said everything. Authority didn't need to raise its voice. It just arrived. And that was what made men like him dangerous. Amos let his eyes move slowly across the scene. Claire on the porch, Silas beside her, the rope marks on her wrists, the tension in the men around him. He took it all in, without hurry. Then he spoke. Clara. Her name came out steady, controlled, like nothing here surprised him. Clara felt her chest tighten, not from fear this time, from something deeper, familiar, heavy. "I'm here," she said. Her voice didn't shake. That surprised her. Amos gave a small nod. "You don't have to protect him," he said. No anger, no accusation, just quiet certainty. The kind that made other people believe him before they even thought about it. Clara shook her head. "I'm not protecting him." Amos's eyes shifted briefly to Silas, then back to her. "You're hurt," he said. "You're confused." A few of the men behind him nodded without meaning to. That was how it worked. He didn't argue. He redefined. Claire felt it happen. The ground under her words shifting before she could hold it steady. "He didn't do this," she said. Amos tilted his head slightly. "That's what he told you. Simple, clean, dangerous." The younger rider, with the rope, looked between them again. Uncertainty creeping back in, this time stronger. Claire stepped forward, just a little. "He covered me before he cut me down," she said. That landed. Different. Men understood that. Amos paused, just for a fraction. Then he moved again. "Then why were you found like that?" he asked. Not loud, not sharp, but pointed. It hung there, and just like that. The weight shifted again. Clara opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Because that was the question. The one she hadn't said yet. The one she couldn't take back once it was spoken. Silas stayed quiet. He didn't look at her, didn't step in. This wasn't his ground. This was hers. The wind moved through the trees. Dust drifted slowly down. Amos's voice softened. "Come down from there," he said gently. "We'll take you home. Home." That word hit harder than anything else, because Clara knew what it meant now. Not safety. Control. Silas shifted his weight slightly, not enough for anyone else to notice. But Clara saw it. He wasn't stepping in, but he wasn't stepping away either. That mattered. Clara swallowed. Then she said it. "He tied me up." Not soft, not uncertain, sharp, immediate. Amos didn't react, not the way most men would. He didn't shout, didn't deny. He just looked at her. Long, measured. "My daughter is tired," he said calmly. "She has been frightened, humiliated, and now she is clinging to the first explanation that spares her more pain." There it was again, that quiet turn, turning her words into something else before they could take root. A few of the men shifted. One looked down, another scratched his jaw. Doubt was back, but it wasn't pointed in one direction anymore. It was split. That was worse. Clara felt her pulse rise again. "He tied me to that tree," she said. Stronger now. Amos's eyes flicked once toward the ridge, then back to her. "You were being corrected," he said. The word sat wrong, even to the men listening. Corrected was one thing. Rope was another. And every man there knew the difference, whether he wanted to admit it or not. Silas saw that. He saw the moment it didn't line up clean. He didn't speak yet, not while Amos still had control of the rhythm. Because once you break a man like that in front of his people, you don't do it halfway. You do it once, and you do it right. From the back of the group, another rider stepped forward, older, quiet. Watching more than talking, he glanced at Clara's wrist, then toward the trees, then back to Amos. "Reverend," he said slowly, "that don't look like correction." That was the first real crack. Small, but real. Amos heard it. Everyone did. He shifted in the saddle just enough to reset himself. "This is not the place for accusations," he said. "Not like this." He was trying to slow it down, push it back, regain control. Clara felt it slipping. The moment was moving, and if she didn't hold it now, it would be gone forever. She reached for something at her side, not fast, not dramatic. Careful, deliberate. Silas saw it first, then Amos. And for the first time since he rode into that clearing, something changed in his face. Not much, just enough. Concern. Real concern. Claire's fingers worked at the seam inside her skirt, pulling at a hidden stitch she had made days ago when she first started to understand what her father was doing. The thread gave, a small bundle slipped into her hand. Wrapped tight. Oilcloth. The men leaned forward without realizing it. "What's that?" one of them asked. Clara held it close, not opening it yet. Her voice came steady now. Stronger than before, and the truth, she said, and for the first time since the riders reached the clearing. Even the wind seemed to stop and listen. No one moved, not even the horses. Clara held the small bundle in both hands, wrapped tight in oilcloth like it weighed more than it should. Because it did. Not in pounds. In what it meant. The older rider stepped closer, slow, careful, like he didn't want to startle the moment. "Let's see it," he said. Clara didn't hand it to him. Not yet. Her eyes stayed on her father, on Amos. He was still in the saddle, still calm on the outside, but something had shifted. It was small. Most men wouldn't catch it. Silas did. The tightness in his jaw, the way his hand rested just a little too close to his coat, not reaching, but ready. That was new. Claire saw it too, and that told her everything she needed to know. She turned slightly and held the bundle out, not to Amos, to the older rider. "Open it," she said. The man took it, slow, like he wasn't sure what he was holding. He peeled back the oilcloth. Inside was a small account book. Worn, used. Not something made for show. Something meant to be kept. He flipped it open. At first, his face didn't change. Just reading. Names. Dates. Short notes. Then he stopped, his brow tightened. "What is this?" he asked. Clara answered before Amos could. "Read it." The man did. Out loud this time, not all of it, just enough. A name, a date, a short line in the margin. Sent on, another page, another name, another short line. Balance settled. Down to spread again, but this one was different, heavier. Because now the words weren't just hers, they were written. The younger rider stepped closer, looking over his shoulder. His face changed faster. Recognition. He knew one of the names. Everyone did. A girl who had left town months ago. Said she was going to work. Never came back. Amos spoke then. Smooth. Controlled. "That is church business," he said. "Travel and placement for girls who needed work." It sounded reasonable. That was the problem. It always did. The older rider looked up. "Then why hide it?" he asked. Amos didn't hesitate. "'Cause people don't understand the work we do," he said. "That doesn't make it wrong. That line almost held. Almost. But not quite. Because the small account book was still open. Still being read. Another page turned. Another name. Another note. Wagon at dusk. That one landed differently. Not charities. Not church. Something else. Claire felt it. The shift. Small, but growing. Silas stayed where he was. Quiet. Watching. He didn't need to speak. The truth was doing its own work now. Amos saw it slipping. He leaned forward slightly in the saddle. "This is being twisted," he said. You're letting a frightened girl rewrite what she doesn't understand. But that was his move. Always had been. Take control of the story. Define it before anyone else could. The younger writer looked unsure again. Pulled both ways. That was dangerous. Uncertain men look for someone to follow, and Amos was very good at being that someone. Silas knew it. He also knew something else. Words weren't going to win this. Not alone. He stepped forward, one pace, not aggressive, just enough to be heard. Check the rope, he said. That was all. The men glanced toward the trees, toward where Clara had been found. The older rider frowned. What about it? Silas kept his voice even. Not something a drunk ties, he said. Not something done in a hurry. He let that sit. Then added one more piece. Freight knot. That mattered. Every man there who had ever hauled goods knew that knot. You didn't learn it by accident. You learned it working, day after day. The older rider's eyes narrowed. He knew it too. He had used that knot himself. Amos spoke quickly. A lot of men know that knot, he said. That proves nothing. True, but it cracked the clean edge of his story, just enough. The younger rider lowered the rope in his hand another inch. He wasn't ready to use it anymore. Not yet. That was the third crack. Clara felt her pulse steady for the first time since the clearing filled with men. Not calm, but stronger. She stepped forward again. There's more, she said. Amos turned his head sharply. Just a fraction, but everyone saw it. Clara. He said, one word. Warning now. Not soft, not gentle. She ignored it. That's not all of it. She said. The older rider looked at her. What else? Clara took a breath, then pointed toward the ridge. Check the road, she said. Old limestone trail. Silas's eyes shifted. He knew that road. Everyone did. Freight moved that way. Tat-bum. Quiet. Out of sight. The older rider frowned deeper. Why? He asked. Clara met his eyes. Because they're not done, she said. If the next wagon was already moving, then tonight had been planned long before anyone found her on that tree. That landed harder than anything else. Not done. Meaning this wasn't something that had happened. It was something still happening. From somewhere beyond the ridge, faint but clear, came the sound of wheels. Wood, iron. Slow, heavy, every head turned, even Amos. And that was the moment everything changed, because whatever was coming up that road, it wasn't part of the story he had told. And for the first time, the truth wasn't just written on paper. It was about to roll straight into the middle of town. The sound of wheels grew louder. Slow, heavy. Not something you ignored. Every man in that clearing turned toward the ridge. Even the horses shifted, ears forward, picking it up before the riders did. Silas didn't move. He didn't need to. He already knew what that sound meant. Weight. Too much weight for empty crates. Clara felt it too. Her grip tightened on the coat around her shoulders. That's them, she said quietly. No one answered, because no one wanted to say it first. The older rider stepped forward, squinting through the trees. Who's running freight this late? He muttered. No one had a good answer. Amos spoke, instead. Calm again, too calm. Probably a supply run, he said. Nothing unusual about that. It sounded right. That was the problem. It always sounded right when he said it. But this time, fewer men nodded. That was new. The wagon came into view. Slow, covered, canvas pulled tight. 2 riders alongside it, not town men, working men. Armed, the driver pulled the reins as they reached the edge of the clearing. Surprised to see so many people waiting, the horses snorted. Stamping as they stopped, dust rolled past their legs. The man riding beside the wagon looked around, measuring faces. Then his eyes landed on Amos, and he relaxed, just a little. That was all Silas needed to see. Recognition. Not surprise. This wasn't a coincidence. This was expected. Reverend, the rider said, tipping his hat slightly. Not respectful, familiar. Amos nodded back. You made good time, he said. Too quick, too natural. The words slipped out before he could shape them, and the men in the clearing heard it. All of them. The older rider's head turned slowly. "You were expecting them," he said. Amos didn't answer right away. That was his first mistake. Silence can hurt a man more than words. The rider by the wagon stepped forward. "We heard there was trouble," he said. "Came to help keep things straight." Silas almost smiled at that. Keep things straight. That was one way to say it. Clara stepped closer to the edge of the porch. Her voice came stronger now. "What's in the wagon?" she asked. The driver didn't answer. He looked at Amos instead. That was the second mistake. Everyone saw it. The older rider stepped forward again. "Open it," he said. Not a request. The man by the wagon hesitated just a second. Then he reached for the canvas. Slow. Careful. Like he already knew he wasn't going to like what came next. The cloth pulled back. For a second, no one said a word. Then a hand moved inside, a woman's hand. Another shape shifted behind it. 3 young women sat close together in the back, still as fence posts, the kind of stillness that comes when fear has been with you too long. That was worse. The clearing went still. No one spoke. No one moved, because now there was nothing left to argue about. No words could fix what they were seeing. Claire's breath caught. "That's them," she whispered. Silas didn't look at her. He was watching the men, watching how they reacted. That told him more than anything else. The younger rider with the rope let it fall from his hand. Forgotten. Useless now. The older man took one slow step toward the wagon. "Where were you hauling them?" he asked. The driver swallowed. "Work," he said. The word didn't land. Not anymore. Not with the small account book. Not with the notes. Not with the way those girls looked. Amos spoke again, trying to hold what was left. They agreed to go, he said. "Everything is lawful." Lawful. That word sounded thin now. Fragile. Clara stepped forward. "They don't come back," she said. No one argued that, because everyone knew at least one name in that small account book. At least one person who had left and never returned. No one was ready to call Amos guilty just yet. But no one was ready to call him blameless anymore either. The older rider turned slowly back to Amos. "This your work?" he asked. Not loud, but heavy. Amos straightened in his saddle, still trying, still holding on to the role he had built. "You're letting this get out of hand," he said. But it was already out of his hands. Everyone could feel it. The balance had shifted. Silas stepped off the porch, not fast, not dramatic. Just one step forward into the clearing. He didn't raise his rifle, didn't reach for anything. He didn't need to. The truth was standing right there, breathing, looking back at him. The rider beside the wagon shifted, his hand moving toward his coat. That was the moment. Silas saw it. So did the older rider. "Don't," the older man said sharply. Too late. The rider's hand dipped, fast, desperate, trying to grab something that would fix this. But there was nothing left to fix. Silas moved. Not wild, not rushed, just enough. "Drop it," he said, low, firm. The kind of voice men listen to when things are about to go wrong. The rider froze, just long enough. The older man stepped in, grabbing his arm, pulling it away from the coat. "Not today," he said. The tension snapped. Not into violence, into something else. Truth. Unavoidable now. The wagon stood there, the girls inside, the small account book in hand, the rope on the ground, all of it connected. All of it clear. Amos looked around the clearing, at the men, at the doubt, at the distance growing between him and everything he used to control. And for the first time, he looked alone. But Silas knew better. Men like that didn't fall easy. Not in the open. Not in front of people. They fell later. In the dark. When no one was ready. The wind picked up again, moving dust across the clearing. Clara stood still, watching her father. He didn't look back at her. Not once. And that told her everything, because whatever happened next, it wasn't over. Not even close. And somewhere behind that calm face, Amos Vale was already deciding what he would do when the sun went down. The clearing didn't break into chaos. It didn't need to. The truth had already done what shouting never could. Men who had ridden up ready to hang someone now stood still, looking at the wagon, at the girls, at the small account book, and then at Amos Vale, not with certainty, with doubt. And in a place like Cold Mercy, doubt was the beginning of everything changing. No one cheered. No one celebrated. That's not how things worked out here. Change didn't come loud. It came quiet. In the way men stopped nodding, in the way they stopped looking to one man for answers, in the way they started looking at each other instead. Amos sat in the saddle, still straight, still composed, but the weight had shifted. Not all at once, not clean, but enough. The older rider stepped forward, voice low but firm. "You're coming back to town," he said, not asking, not loud, just steady. A few others moved in beside him, not aggressive, not friendly either, just done. By then, no one in that clearing was calling him Reverend. Amos didn't argue, not then. Men like him didn't fight when they were losing ground. They waited, and that evening, for the first time in years, Amos Vale was the one being watched, but everyone in that clearing felt it. The moment had passed. The story he controlled was no longer the only story in the room. Silas stepped back toward the porch, not claiming anything, not taking credit. He didn't need to. Clara watched him. For a long second, then she stepped down from the porch, slow, careful. Her legs still weak, but stronger than before. She stood there, looking at the rope lying in the dirt. The same rope that had almost written her story for her. They were ready to use that, she said quietly. Silas nodded once. Yeah, she looked at him. Not with fear. Not anymore. With something steadier. You didn't have to stay, she said. Silas looked out toward the trail where the wagon would soon be turned back. I know. Same answer as before. Same weight. But it meant more now, because now she understood it. He could have walked away at the tree. He could have left her. He could have saved himself, and no one would have blamed him. But he didn't. Clara took a slow breath, the kind that settles deeper than air. I won't forget that, she said. Silas gave a small nod. That's not why I did it. Of course it wasn't. That's what made it matter. The riders began turning their horses, guiding the wagon back down toward town. No shouting, no spectacle, just a quiet shift in direction. Clara watched them go. Then looked back at the ridge, at the place where everything had almost gone wrong. Then at Silas again. You're not coming down, she said. He shook his head once. I've got work up here. That was true, in more ways than one. She gave a faint smile. Not big, not bright, but real. Maybe town was wrong about you, she said. Silas didn't answer. He just looked back up the ridge where the light was starting to thin. That was answer enough. The wind moved through the trees again, the same wind that had been there all day, but everything felt different now. Because one choice had changed the direction of everything. And I'll be honest with you, I've seen moments like that in real life. Not on a ridge, not with a rope and a wagon, but moments where a man could walk away and no one would blame him. And I've seen what happens when he doesn't. I've lived long enough to know one thing for certain. Most real damage in life doesn't begin with monsters. It begins when decent people decide comfort is easier than courage. That truth ought to sit heavy on all of us. Silas didn't stay because it was safe. He stayed because it was right. And that's not always easy to live with. But it's something you can live with. So here's something worth thinking about. How many times have we stayed quiet because speaking up felt inconvenient? How many times have we trusted the loudest voice instead of the quiet truth in front of us? How many times have we judged someone before we looked twice? Because out here, and honestly anywhere, a lie doesn't need much. It just needs people willing to believe it. And the truth usually needs someone willing to stand there alone for a minute, even when it costs something. If this story gave you something to think about, take a second and hit like. Subscribe if you want more stories that stay with you a little longer than they should. Let me ask you something. Have you ever stood in a moment where doing the right thing had a price on it? Did you step in? Or did you keep riding? There's no judgment here, just something worth sitting with. Before we ride out, one honest note. This story is gathered from old frontier accounts and written back in a way that brings the lesson, the feeling, and the human side into clearer view. A few details have been shaped for meaning and for storytelling. And the images in this video are AI made to help carry the mood. If that kind of telling is not for you, no hard feelings at all. Get some rest tonight and take care of yourself. But if it spoke to you, leave me a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I always like knowing who's out there on the other side of the trail, because stories like this don't belong to one place. They belong to anyone who's ever had to choose between what's easy and what's right. And sometimes that choice is the only thing that stands between a lie and the life it was about to destroy